And we welcome all who have joined us, and we appreciate if you'll continue to maintain your social distancing so we can be in compliance with what our governor wants us to do. And I would say also that, as like probably our new governor said, please wear your damn mask. So anyway, so I'm just quoting him, so that's, Anyway, we'll start this evening by a pledge of allegiance by Denise Roy will give us our pledge, after which we've asked Diana Anderson, our council member, to give us the opening remarks. Denise.
Everyone, please rise. You pledge after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our dear Father in heaven, we are so grateful for this opportunity that we have to gather together. We're grateful for the opportunity that we have to serve and Pleasant Grove. We're grateful for this room and those who are in it and those that are concerned about the welfare and safety in Pleasant Grove. We ask now that as these agenda items come up that we'll be able to think, that we'll be able to learn and listen and make those decisions that will be best in the long run. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. We thank Denise and Diana. And we'll now move to our number 4, approval of our agenda this night. Now, we'll make a note. Is there anything else we need to add, Scott, other than the...
No, we just have a couple continued items.
Yeah, on our public hearings, we have continued items D and F.
D and F, and those are going to be continued indefinitely. So we'll just renotice the public hearing when that time comes to bring it back to you.
So with that, I would ask for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve tonight's meeting agenda with the adaptation of 9D and 9F being continued indefinitely.
We have a motion by Councilmember Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Bullock. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. It's unanimous. So anyway, we'll now move on to our open session and invite anybody who would like to come forward and address the council at this time. We ask you to keep your remarks to the 3-minute guideline. Those who would like to come forward, please come forward. And please just state your name for us.
Carrie Hammond. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I'm at 1877 West, 1100 North. We have the road over there torn up right now. For good reasons. But I wanted to talk about my email to the council and to some of the city administration from June 22nd. My email says I arrived home tonight to find my driveway torn up by the city's contractor for some water project. I'd like to know what's going on out here. Why does it require digging up my driveway and putting a water main under it? What is the city's plan for fixing it? How long will it take? What am I to expect in the future? My response to that, I felt, was fairly condescending and created a complaint where there was none. I asked for answers. I asked questions. I leave in the morning to go to work before the contractors start working. I come home at night long after they're gone. I needed to know what was happening, and I asked those questions. I didn't know who to direct them to, so I directed them to everybody. My bad. Okay, I'll accept that. But I get a response back from the Director of Public Works that says, you know, you've all seen it. They talked to some guy at my house who supposedly lives in my house that didn't have a problem with any of it. Okay, that doesn't negate my need to have answers. for what happened. So the questions were answered, but I felt the tone of the response was condescending and divisive, frankly. It created a complaint where there was no complaint. I already knew that we were working on a water project in conjunction with an American Fork Road project. Kudos to you guys for doing that and having the forethought to get that done so we don't have to dig up the road a second time. And we all know how badly the water systems need attention. So wonderful work, guys. And I want to say to all of you, wonderful work. I understand the need for looking at future development. That's great. I pat you all on the back for that. Great. But I did have questions that I felt were legitimate. And although they were answered, I felt like they were answered in a condescending and divisive tone. And then to add insult to injury, there was a picture added to the email taken from an angle that doesn't justify what actually is happening out there. There actually was a trench dug into my driveway. It is going to be fixed. That's great, but I'm a property owner there. I'm a homeowner there. I had questions. I needed them addressed. I didn't think it was appropriate to be defensive and condescending in that response. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm going to send you some more pictures of the actual views that matter. They did put the sidewalk today. I understand there's going to be asphalt laid shortly in the next few days. And hopefully they're going to fill the hole from the trench that went in the driveway. And so, cool, I'm happy. But please, I'm a homeowner in this town. And if I need answers because my driveway is dug up, first of all, I think it would behoove you to know the name of the homeowner that you're affecting, and then to respond in a kind manner when you do respond. I tried phone calls 3 times to clarify the response from the email instead of coming here. I wanted to respond in writing, but I don't want to have an email fight. I made 3 phone calls. I didn't get 1 returned. So I'm here. There you go. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, and we apologize if we didn't communicate properly, but it's kind of, and I think part of the problem was it was American Fork project and not a Pleasant Grove project, even though American Fork was putting in the water line for Pleasant Grove. So that kind of,
Let me just please add, there was no problem with my access at any point. Kudos on that too. We had access in and out of the driveway, even though there was a trench in it, every single day, no matter what. They went to great pains to make sure that happens to me, and I appreciate it.
okay. Thank you. Anyone else like to come forward and address the council?
Carrie, can I just ask, do you know what number you called into so we can make sure that our phone lines are working properly?
I called into the number that was on Marnie's response.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Looks like no one else wants to come and address the council, so we'll now close our open session and move on to item number 6, our consent items. Consent item A is city council minutes from the June 23rd, 2020 meeting. B, to consider for approval payment request number 5 for Cody Ecker Construction for the Fillers and Diversion Project. And C, to consider approval of payment approval report for July 3rd, 2020. And if there's not any other questions on the consent items, I ask for a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion for tonight's consent items.
We have a motion from Councilmember Jensen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Anderson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Passes unanimously. Now we don't have any board, commission, or committee reports or appointments this evening or presentations. We'll move to our public hearings, and we'll move to 9A, public hearing to take public comment regarding the proposed urban deer control plan and adoption of ordinance 2020-8, authorizing harvesting of the urban deer in conjunction with Division of Wildlife Services of the State of Utah and providing for an effective date. City Administrator Darrington.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We've been working on this for a little bit of time now, and a month or so ago, we went through this deer control plan to make sure there was an understanding of what we were going to try to do. The intent of what we're looking at is what we would call deer mitigation. So we have numerous deer running through our city, and we're looking for a method in which we could reduce the amount of deer that are as far as phone calls and things I've received. I'm assuming you've received phone calls and emails from deer eating gardens or upsetting things and just kind of being a little bit of a nuisance. So what we are proposing is something that is not uncommon. In fact, this is most cities in Utah County do something similar to this. However, for us to do a deer mitigation program, it does take approval from the Division of Wildlife Resources. And one of the requirements is we create a deer control plan and we have a public hearing associated with that. In the deer control plan is that, and we have what we call a COR, which gives us the abilities and capacities in which we can do this. We're allowed to take 100 deer per year from the herd, and we are going to be contracting with Humphreys Archery. Brian Cook will be here later in the meeting. The agreement with him is later on in the meeting. And Brian will be here at that point to answer any questions, but that's who we would contract out to take care of this business. So under the plan, it does say that we will have a sole entity that isn't, so this does not mean our residents can take out their guns and go shoot deer. It has to be done through Humphreys Archery for the protection of everyone involved. They are professionals at what they do when it comes to taking care of this. The control plan allows for some baiting to get a closer shot. For the most part, what they're going to be doing is trapping them and then using a bolt gun to euthanize the deer. So that's the safest way to do it. If there's some reason they can't do that, then they are allowed to use archery tactics, but those will be kind of the secondary way in which they'll do that. The time period that we are allowed to do this is August 1st through December 31st. And then there's times just before sunrise and just after sunset in which they can do this. So generally the hours of light in which they can do that. The locations in which we will be putting our bait boxes will be determined between us and Humphreys. They'll have a general sense of where the herd is and how to track it, and then they'll make recommendations on where to put it. If it's on private property, we'll need permission of the private property owner of the property. We have had some residents that have already volunteered. You can put it in my backyard. So I don't think that's going to be an issue in regards to finding places to do that. If an animal is harvested, there are paperwork requirements through DWR that need to be done. Humphreys Archery will be responsible. We get so many tags per year, so they have to tag them and document what they've done. And then if there's if there's antlers involved, they have to harvest the antlers back to DWR. And they have some requirements as far as that's concerned. And then they also have to show what they're doing with the harvested animal. So for the most part, when Humphreys harvests the animal, either the hunter gets to keep the meat or they will donate the meat to others in need. But there's not they don't take it to the dump, if that makes sense. I mean, they do find a use for that meat. So that's the general, they do a test for chronic wasting disease as required by DWR as part of this plan. And we have Wes and Jake here from DWR, way back there. And if you have any questions for them, they can answer those questions. Do you have any questions for me regarding the plan?
I've got one, Scott. Do we know what our estimated population?
That was my question.
Anybody?
No, we estimated about 500. But
500?
Yeah, but we don't know that. I think we'll find out. Humphreys does have a way to track. I mean, they'll use cameras and things like that. But we don't. No, we in essence took a guess at what we thought the amount of deer we had.
So 100's not going to make much dent in it to start out with here, is it?
Well, in this, it's not like they can just go out and wipe out everything. And this is, I think, pretty typical as far as the amount of deer that they're allowed to take out. And maybe DWR could answer that question a little better than I could, why we're capped at 100. But this isn't something that by December 31st, all of a sudden, all the deer are gone. There's still going to be some around, but it is a process of year after year, in essence, getting on top of the situation.
And this is just a year contract with Humphreys, is that right?
No, it's a 3-year deal, so we'll go year after year. We have an out at any time if we want to cancel it, we can. But, and like I said, that agreement we'll talk about later in the meeting. But the intent is to keep going year after year with them. That's how most cities do it.
Okay. Is it thought that that Humphreys will be able to eliminate 100 deer a year, or
That's the
up,
hope.
I know it's up to,
Up to.
but
Yeah, so if they only
are
get 50,
are they thinking that they can do 100?
if the deer are there, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because they get $75 a deer. They'll do as many deer as they can get. So it's in their interest to get as many as they can get.
Okay.
Any other questions for?
So, yeah, so Scott, I think this is just accumulation of the previous meetings we've had.
Uh-huh.
And so it's just kind of finally, here we go. I mean, 500, I mean,
Well,
I mean, at least I know at least 20 of them around
Yeah.
my neck of the woods, right? And then I know Diana has her own herd over by her.
I got a
and-
herd.
yeah.
Gotta quit chumming them.
I know.
Well, if you remember, we made it
Strawberry
illegal to
plants.
feed deer. That was one of the requirements in order for us to do this. So if there's been people purposely feeding deer, they shouldn't be doing that. But the intent is to take out 100 every year. And if we get up to 100, great. If we don't, then I think generally that will be because maybe we don't have that many.
And just to be clear, I know we've talked about this, but I want to make sure that it's on record that these aren't deer that are coming down into the city from the mountains. These are urban deer that are living in our orchards and in our city full time, and generation after generation have
So
lived
I don't
here.
know the answer to that, but that I think is
It
generally
appears
the-
that way.
the
They're
case.
not going to ask before. Where'd you come from?
They may not have a
Sorry.
green card.
Well, and again, that DWR might be able to get a little more
Well,
specific on
could
that.
we have
'cause-
them
I'd love
come
that.
forward and address
I
that?
do have one more question before
Okay.
they get to talk. If something happens where there's some damage to either city property or to somebody else's home while this is happening, what insurance is going to cover this?
So we're insured on our end. Humphreys is required to be insured on their end.
Okay.
So,
Not that they're going to be damaging anything, but I'm just wondering where liability lands.
no. Well, the liability will rest with them in regards to their operation.
Okay.
But since they're being contracted by the city, then,
We'll cover
I
it.
mean, we'll see how, if something happens, how that exactly rolls out. But-
Okay.
So tell us where the deer's coming from.
All right. Well, I'm Wes Alexander, as he said, urban wildlife biologist. So one of the, in regards to that question, that the focus of this program is to target deer that are sole resident urban deer. One of the dates are set August 1st through the end of December. I would say that the front end of those dates, I think we can be fairly confident that we're removing urban deer. That is a concern. I mean, obviously deer migrate down off the mountain, and as we've said, that can be tough to tell. But we want to try to take the steps that we can best to ensure that we're removing those resident deer. That's going to make the biggest problem, or excuse me, solve the biggest problem. Not take deer off the mountain where people want them or they should be. So again, the front end of those dates, I would, the earlier the better. It can be tougher to get them, but that is the hope and the design of this program. I don't know if you had any other questions with that or not.
No, I just want you to know that you have my dream job. Since I was about 12 years old, wildlife biologist was what I've always wanted to be. So you're living the dream.
Oh, well, thank you. I can't complain. It is a good job, so.
So what other cities, I think Linden's doing it?
Yeah, so that's honestly most cities within Utah County north of Mapleton. Mapleton, Springville, Provo, Linden, American Fork, I don't think Alpine is at the moment. Highland, yes. So.
Will you
most.
kill a raccoon too if you see one?
Have at it.
Is that a different group that we can get in? Because we have an epidemic of that too.
This is
Okay, okay.
DWR.
I don't want to take, never mind.
You can take all
We'll
the
talk to
raccoons you
you.
want.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Wes. Appreciate
Okay.
you being here tonight.
Thank you. Council, if there's no other discussion right now, I'll open this public hearing and ask anyone who would like to come forward and address the council on this, on our deer mitigation plan.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. Roger Green. I was just wondering if there was going to be a buck to doe ratio, or if it was going to be anything that happened to show up. And I personally have got kind of a catch-22 situation going on. I understand the problem fully. But there's the reason in my mind that a lot of them deer are down here is because people are building their houses up there. They have no other place to go. They're forced out of their house. I mean, none of us, I don't think, would like it if we were forced out of our house and then put out to be hunted just to get rid of us. So I kind of have a tough thing with that, but I would really like to know the buck to doe ratio, because you start eliminating bucks and you're just gonna hurt your herds worse than what they already are. Thanks.
Thanks, Roger.
I think we have an answer for you. Scott?
Yeah, according to our COR, out of the 100 deer, 25 a year can be antlered. So 25 out of the 100.
25%.
Okay. Anyone else like to come forward and address the council?
So this was really my main reason for coming here tonight. I have deer at my place all the time, and I enjoy them. I think that's part of the charm of being able to live in Pleasant Grove. I also plant a huge garden every single year, and I have never had a deer bother my garden, not once. So I don't know, guys. I think there are ways to deter them. I think you can plant things that repel the deer. I think you can not plant things that attract the deer. I think if you have plenty of activity happening in your yard, they automatically stay away from you. Whenever I approach a deer, it runs away from me. It's not like I can walk up to it and feed it. There may be some of those, though. I feel kind of strongly that, yeah, they're urban deer, but they didn't start out to be urban deer. The deer herds have been here always. We created the urban city that they have to now deal with. We put buildings where their habitat was. So I sort of welcome them. I enjoy seeing the deer around. I haven't had occasion to have an accident. I've heard a few stories. The deer ran into me. I know that that can sometimes happen, but I think that's probably the exception rather than the rule.
It's about 20 times a year.
That the deer ran into you?
No, that there've
No,
been accidents.
because I don't think it's
Accidents
the deer who cause the accidents. It's the vehicle operator who causes the accident. Deers don't drive cars. Yeah, they sometimes bolt out in front of you. They're scary. You have to stop fast. But we live in an area that's surrounded by mountains and a lake. We're so blessed to be living in this area. And the deer are part of that charm and the joy of living in a city like Pleasant Grove, where we have access to so much beauty, and the deer are just part of that. And I enjoy them. I have a video I was going to share with y'all, but I can't. I mean, it's here, but I can't really share it. Of the deer that I take pictures of all the time. And When I heard this subject come up at the work session a while back, I stopped posting pictures on Facebook of the deer because I don't want to give away their position. But they're there all the time. I went home just the other night, and there was a young buck standing there to greet me when I got out of my car. And he ran away. They run away. So I think that people need to be more educated about what they can and cannot plant. What are some of the natural deterrents we can do to keep them out of our yard if they're an inconvenience? And pay attention when you're driving. Don't be distracted. Slow down and be aware that the deer are there, just like you would if it was a child, a bicycle, a ball, a dog, a cat, whatever.
Okay,
Don't
thank
kill
you.
the deer.
Anyone else like to come forward and address the council? Not, I will now close our public hearing and bring it back up to the council if they have any discussion.
Very simply, I also feel this is a very, very hard decision. And I've told this story. I was out working in my yard, and I had one neighbor come by and say, "Oh, please, Diana, save the deer, save the deer." And she drove away, and the next guy pulled around the corner and said, "Diana, kill the deer." So I think that's the sentiment of the city, and we're not going to get rid of all of the deer. That will be impossible. So, but they have done damage, and so I'm in favor of this. So.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the council?
You know, I am a deer lover. As you know, I've always been enamored by the outdoors, by wildlife. I'm an active hunter, and love to see deer in our city. I do, but I've also hit one of the deer in our city. I was going less than 5 miles an hour on First East, and right there by the Franklin Academy. Franklin? No.
Lincoln.
Lincoln.
Or
No.
John
Oh,
Hancock.
John Hancock. That's what it is. John Hancock, and was going very, very slow, and it was towards twilight, and it was a doe, ran out in front of me, and I hit it. You know, I wasn't going very fast, so it kind of stumbled and got up. But that was quite a few years ago. That was probably 5 or 6 years ago, and the deer population has gotten increasingly worse since then. And so much that I've seen herds of 20, upwards of 20 deer in someone's yard, and that's where it starts to get detrimental to our residents. We start getting tame deer, which is a real big problem for our residents and for the safety. So this has been a hard one for me because I love to see the deer. I love to see deer in my yard, but at this point we have too many deer in our city, and so I'm in favor of this ordinance.
Okay.
I agree with what Diana and Todd both said. For me, it's a safety issue. I believe Chief Roberts gave a number when we first began talking about this about 8 months ago. That was over 50 accidents reported. I think that was in a year's time, Chief. Is that? I believe so. I don't want that to be my 16-year-old son coming down 100 East at 10 o'clock at night, hitting a deer and not knowing how to, one accident and someone killed by a deer running out would be bad. So if we can control the population, there's still, as Diana said, there's still going to be deer in our city. We're just trying to take care of those that have become urbanized, as Todd said as well. But for me, it's a safety issue, and I've received numerous complaints from residents over the years who are very, very concerned about the issues that we're having with deer in our roadways. So that's the main issue for me. As far as a deterrent, we have a fence around our yard and they still get in. So we're doing everything we can to keep them out. And then it's private property, and we hate to see the orchards and open space being taken, but private property owners do have a right to build there, and they'll eventually sell that land, and it will drive the deer down, and but they do have that right, and we want to respect that as well for those private property owners. So I'm in favor of this, and looking forward to making our community live safer as far as the urbanized deer.
Yeah, you know, one of the main reasons we have a Division of Wildlife Resources is the conservation of deer and wildlife in general, and that's kind of what we're doing. We're making plans to preserve and also to conserve the resources that these urban deer have. So, anyway, thanks.
Anything else from any of the council?
No, yeah.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to 9B, public hearing to consider for adoption ordinance 2020-9 to permanently closing and abandoning approximately 3,416 square foot road right-of-way located approximately 920 west, 1100 north, and permanently closing and abandoning approximately,
Excuse me, Mayor, I think we
Yes.
need to take action on,
Yeah, we have to vote.
or we,
is there no action?
we got it in the
Yeah,
action.
later. No, we don't. You're right.
Yeah, it's items ready for action on the first.
No,
Separated.
It's
yeah,
down in
this
the
is
action
different.
items.
So this is adoption of ordinance 2020-8 authorizing the harvesting of urban deer. The other one is our contract with Humphreys. So these are two different things we're talking
Oh,
about.
okay.
So we do have an ordinance
Thank
that
you.
we need to adopt in order to send this off to DWR. Sorry.
Marty, you'll have to excuse us for a minute. No problem. Sorry. Okay. Ask for a motion. And what is the motion?
It's 9A.
It's right here. Kathy's got it for me.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-8, authorizing harvesting of urban deer in conjunction with the Division of Wildlife Resources of the state of Utah and providing for an effective date.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. We have a motion, Councilmember Williams, a second by Councilmember Limone. And this is a roll call vote. And we'll start off with Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock,
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen,
Yes.
Councilmember Limone,
Yes.
and Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Passes unanimously. I'm sorry about that oversight. We won't let that happen again, at least till the next one. Marty, would you come forward? And we'll now move on to 9B, as I outlined.
Mayor and Council, we were approached by a homeowner slash developer to, about the current right-of-way along 1100 North. And currently, our right-of-way that we have is beyond our existing improvements in that area. So this is at 860 West and 1100 North Street. You can see they've shown in the dash lines here the existing improvements. We have a curb and gutter and a 6-foot sidewalk that run along there. And the current right-of-way for that is actually a distance here. You can kind of see here about 9 feet on this end, a little bit more on this other end. And this is just of the house currently at the 920 West Street, our west address. The developer of that and the owners of the property have approached the city about the potential of vacating that excess right-of-way that exists in this location. It does not exist along the entire right-of-way of 1100 North. Most of the right-of-way is usually about a couple feet within the back of the sidewalk along the road. And so this is a location that we've identified that is right-of-way that is not needed for a known future planned right-of-way widening project or anything that we are currently aware of which we would want to keep this right-of-way. And so in their approach, they asked if we would vacate that. We've looked over it, reviewed their description, and also agree with that. There are two property owners here. We've got the Hollingers, as you can see here, and then we've also got the Wignalls, who are directly to the west of the Hollinger property at that second address. They came in together just because it made sense. You can see the next house here was already part of the Honey subdivision, and their right-of-way was already kind of up near the back of the sidewalk. So this essentially vacation would be to get that within 2 feet of the sidewalk up to the existing right-of-way that we typically have in our standard streets. So any questions on that?
Well, did we pick that up when we widened 1100 North for some reason?
It either was according to the original deeds of the property, because it wouldn't make sense that UDOT would have necessarily, I think UDOT did that project, Mayor, when they did that project many years ago, and I think there's no evidence, I guess, that was acquired at that time that I was able to find on the records. So it may have just been there all along, and they constructed the road within the right-of-way, and we just had more than we needed. How that commonly happens. If it's not needed, they would just leave the right-of-way lines where they're at. Any other questions?
Any questions for Marty on this? Okay, thank you. And I'd like to open the public hearing and invite anybody to come forward to address the council on the adoption of ordinance 2020-9 on the having this right-of-way go back to the property owners. Anyone like to come forward now? I don't see a rush for the podium, so we'll now close our public hearing and bring it back up to the council. And see if you have any other questions for Marty on it. Okay? If not, I would ask for a motion on ordinance 2020-9.
Mayor, I make, that's loud. Okay, Mayor, I make a motion for adoption of ordinance 2020-9, permanently closing and abandoning approximately 3,416 square feet road right-of-way located at approximately 920 west, 1100 north, and permanently closing and abandoning approximately 1,005 square feet right-of-way located approximately 970 west, 1100 north.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Jensen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Bullock. Will this be a roll call vote again? We'll start out with Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock,
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen,
Yes.
Councilmember Limone, and Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. We will now move on to 9D, which has been indefinitely continued, and then we'll move to 9E.
Wait, do we,
9C.
C, we're on C, 9C.
Oh, excuse me. Thanks for keeping me straight here. So that's, Diana, you're supposed to be
No,
on top
I
of
was
that a little
moving
bit
right
more.
along with
No,
you.
I'm all right there, so. Anyway, we'll go to 9C. Public hearing to consider for adoption ordinance 2020-10 to apply the R1-20 single-family residential zone to approximately .27 acres on property currently zoned RR Rural Residential Zone located approximately 980 west, 1930 north, and providing for an effective date. Director.
Mayor, Council, this is definitely the easiest rezone we have ever had.
Sid, let's make it difficult.
Mayor, Council, as the mayor already mentioned, this is for a rezone, okay? .27, a little bit of a quarter of an acre. So what happened, we're talking about this lot right here, owned by Mr. Norhagen. He's trying to create a new lot right there. The front is gonna be on 1930 North. And he actually applied and obtained a variance in 2012, 8 years ago. And one of the conditions of the variance was that he rezones the property entirely into an R120. As you guys can see, the property is actually, half of the property is RR, half of the property is R120, okay? And what we're trying to do is just rezone it as R120. There's not a lot of difference in regards to the push. Actually, the general plan even supports this move. It's a great order for them to receive the variance, they needed to rezone the entire property. This item went to planning commission had. I've been talking the whole time without a microphone. There we go. So, planning commission gave a unanimous recommendation of approval. The general plan, it calls for very low density residential, and in a very low density residential land use designation, we include the RR and also we include the R120. They're like pretty much sister zones. It's a, how do I say this, a housekeeping type of an item. So again, unanimous recommendation of approval for this one. Do you guys have any questions? I'm ready.
Any questions for Daniel? Okay, thank you, Daniel.
Easy enough?
Thanks, Daniel.
That's a good one. That was an easy one. No other questions from the council. We will now.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt.
No, we got to have our public hearing
Sorry.
first. Just,
I'm with you.
okay. I tried to do away with the whole thing. So anyway, so. We'll now open our public hearing for ordinance 2020-20. Anyone like to come forward from the public and address the council?
Someone just come up and make it hard for Daniel. Just oppose it.
No one has come forward, so we'll now close our public hearing and bring it back up to the council. And if there's no further questions from the council, we'll
Yeah, I mean,
entertain a motion.
The only question I had, this was a request by the landowner. Okay. Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 2020-10 to apply the R120 single-family residential zone to approximately .27 acres on property currently zoned RR, which is rural residential zone, located approximately 980 west, 1930 north, and providing for an effective date.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilmember Jensen. This will be a roll call vote. Pay attention here. We'll go the other direction. Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Councilmember Limone.
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen.
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. We'll now go to 9D, which has been continued. We'll move on to 9E, a public hearing to consider for adoption ordinance 2020-12, amending City Code Section 10, 9B-7-73, single-family residential, size considerations for accessory buildings, eliminating the conditional use requirements and modifying and qualifying the provisions for the area of accessory structure in all R1 single-family residential zones and providing for an effective date. Director.
Mayor, council, before I start on this, am I living anybody's dream?
Yes.
My brother-in-law, he's a city planner.
If you could just couple it with a food truck, a taco food truck.
Oh, yeah.
That would be the dream.
That's great, that's great. Just a month ago, I had the blessing to become a U.S. citizen, and I'm pretty sure that's the dream of many people. So I'm pretty sure I'm living the dream of many people.
Absolutely.
Daniel!
We didn't know. That's
I
great.
didn't
We're
know.
doing the Pledge of Allegiance. My heart was beating really, really hard. It's the first time I actually do it at City Council, so I was really excited.
Congratulations, my friend.
He does now have to cheer for U.S. soccer if they play Mexico.
That's
Not a
right.
chance, but let's keep
No.
on moving. So, Mayor Council, this item that we have right here in front of us, it's in essence, what we're trying to do is to eliminate the conditional use step for an item, okay? Let me start by showing you any property here in Pleasant Grove City. I didn't pick this, just, I mean, it's the first one that I found. And we have a typical lot right here, okay? This lot is located in the R120 zone. As we can see, again, it's, we have the frontage, the back, both sides. We have a home right here. It's a beautiful home. And then in this case, we do not have any accessory structures in the back. Maybe a tiny little one right here, okay? So right now, if the owner of this property approaches Pleasant Grove City and they decide that they just would like to build a shop or they would like to build a bigger garage, or they would like to build an accessory structure for a mother-in-law, something like that in their backyard, okay? Someone comes to my front counter, to our front counter, and they've showed their plans. And the first thing that we do is to check on the square footage of the proposed structure. If the proposed structure is less than 10% of the zone, of the square footage required for the zone where the lot is in it, is a permitted use. In other words, if we take a look at this one again, this is in an R120 zone. So if someone comes with some plans to build an accessory structure that is 2,000 square feet, a staff reviews it. I have a city planner that takes 30 minutes to go over the plans, to review it, measure it, make sure it's at 2,000, make sure that it has the correct setbacks, make sure that it has the correct building design standards, make sure it has the correct materials. So we spend about 20 to 30 minutes reviewing these plans, and we make sure that it's less than 10% or 10% or less. In the case where it's from 10 to 15%, maybe if it's 11%, if it's 10.1%, but from 10 to 15% of the square footage, it comes to the planning commission, or it is approved at a planning commission under a conditional use permit. And then we gotta tell the applicant, hey, you know what, we gotta stop. What we have to do, we have to send the notices, you have to pay an amount of money, we have to send notices to the newspaper, and do this job, and open it, bring the item at a public hearing where the planning commission reviews this. And then the neighbors come and what the planning commission has done in the last 4 years, and they've done their job because we have given them the parameters. They also review the same thing. They check setbacks, they check the materials, they check the colors, they check the size, and then they approve it, okay? So in the last 4 years, and when I say 4 years, because that's the experience that I've had working here for this great city, I will say 50% of the conditional use that we have are in regards to this.
Are in the what?
In regards to this, are just buildings that are bigger than 10%, less than 15%.
That have already been reviewed by city staff.
Correct.
And we're going through it again in planning commission.
And not just that, but we have to wait about
Pay money.
about a month for them to come to the planning commission, 3 weeks, whatever, the time that it takes for us to notice it and do that type of stuff. And what the planning commission does, again, they just follow because we have a code, and in our code, we have certain requirements. We say, for example, if the structure is bigger than 500, just even bigger than 500, then we require them to follow the materials of the home, because we don't want, or according to the code doesn't want a big metal structure right there. No, if it's bigger than 500 and it makes an impact on the neighborhood, then we want it to follow certain criteria. And I'm going to show it to you, because this is what we asked them to do. So it's right here. And I'm going to tell you why I deleted it. But so the buildings, they should match the primary dwelling with architectural similar materials, colors, and details. The construction of a structures built of metal, vinyl, or other similar durable materials shall include a wainscot, siding, or similar architectural feature covering a minimum of 30% of all building sites. And then, we make sure these things happen. Again, we measure the setbacks. We do everything that staff already did. The reason why I scribbled this, or I deleted it from letter D, is because I want to make it a little bit more prominent. So I brought it as letter A now. So all I did is just move it from D, put it on A. So immediately, as someone is reading the code, because, you know, sometimes people, before they submit, they're reading the code, and they read the design guidelines, and it's going to be the first one right there. But anyway, the proposal, so those requirements are not being taken away. They're just moving from the bottom to the top of the code, so people are easier to find or easier to be spotted by applicants. But the important thing comes right here, okay? So we eliminate the conditional use permit from 10 to 15. The proposal is to make it permitted. And there's another caveat right here. So there's 2 breaks on the size of a structure. It's going to be 15% or the the footprint of the home, should be incidental to the main dwelling, which is the footprint of the home minus the garage. Let me go back to this example that I put right here. For example, this home right here, gray home, it's about 2,270 square feet. 2,300. Let's put it at 2,300. Okay. So, again, if someone comes and they would like to build a garage right here where to put their fifth wheeler, is that how it goes?
Fifth wheel.
Fifth wheel. If they want to put their fifth wheel right there, or whatever they're gonna build in there, and they come up with plans that show 2,000 square feet, the zone is R120, staff approves it. But if it's 2,100, right now it needs to come to Planning Commission. With this amendment, they do not have to come to Planning Commission anymore. The staff will review it and approve it. Now, what's 15% of a lot that is 20,000 is 3,000. Can they build at 3,000? No, they cannot, because they're being limited. It has to be incidental to the main dwelling. In this case, is this area that I draw right here, taking away the garage, okay? So the maximum they can build it in this case will be 2,269 square feet. So still we'll keep it incidental. So we're still keeping track of that, we're reviewing that, and that's what staff will do. We can do it in our front counter, we'll still spend 30 to 40 minutes per item. My city planner will review it, my building official will take a look at it after it. We're just taking away the need to pay a fee, make it public hearing, bring it to the Planning Commission. And at the end, again, in 4 years, using the same design standards that we already have established in the code, okay? So that's what I have, Mayor and Council. And
Thanks,
for
Daniel.
questions.
Any other questions for Daniel? Okay, thank you, Daniel.
Okay.
Now, we would now open our public hearing for any of the ones who would like to come forward and address the council on adoption of ordinance 2020-12.
I'm just trying to clarify. I'm Denise Trickler. I'm Denise Trickler. Yep. Okay, so I am just wondering if we go and look at the code and we decide we want to put a small chicken coop on our yard, and then next year we want to put like a shed for our lawnmower or whatever, does that count as, does the chicken coop already count as part of our dwelling area? Or are those two different?
We'll let Daniel answer
We'll let
that
Daniel
for
answer,
you.
but it's not.
Depends on how big the chicken coop is.
How many chickens?
Or how large and stable the shed is.
So that's a fantastic question. Thank you, Denise. So what we will do, and I'm going to go back to this image, and first let me paraphrase the question. If this guy decides to put a chicken coop right here,
They won't, by the way, Daniel. You see the house? There'll be no chicken coop.
if they decide to put a tiger cage, no. If they decide to put something small, 300 square feet, okay? Will that count? Yes. If it's covered, it will count. So we'll add up the total amount of accessory structures.
So it's a cumulative.
Pardon?
Cumulative, you're adding.
Cumulative, yes. But if there's, for example, a covered patio that is open on 4 sides, then it doesn't count. So we do have rules for that as well. Okay. I don't know if that answered your question. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But a chicken coop does count. In this case.
So a 2,000 square foot shed,
Good question.
that's a good sized shed.
That's a good sized shed. Anyone else like to come forward and address the council? If not, we'll now close our public hearing and bring it back up to the council for any further discussion and possible motion.
Just really quickly, tell me what's the square footage of a standard 2-car garage? Someone in this room,
900,000?
500 square feet?
The 2-car garage usually will be about
that one?
25 by 20, something like that.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, so it's about 500, correct, about 500.
Okay, so my question is, a 2,000 square foot garage is a big garage. That's a big structure.
So,
But
Is it the
that's a
size
big,
of my house?
but Diana, that's a big lot.
correct.
Yes.
I brought this lot to give you a example of
That's a
how,
large.
of the maximum
That's
that you can go.
R120, I understand. That's 20,000 square feet.
Correct. That's almost that's the biggest zone that we have in the city. Usually, most of the items that we got are from R18.
So just tell me really quickly, what is a standard percentage? Like, how many are over the 10%?
Out
That
of
come
all of them
in.
that we have,
No, just roughly. Is that going to be a lot coming through the commission?
it's about 4 to 8. Nah, that's too big of ballpark. About 8 items a year
Okay.
that come to planning commission. Yes,
That are over the 10%?
over 10%, but less than 15. Yes, which
you
again,
ha-
the planning commission approves them, and we just follow the same rules that we already have. But yeah, I would say it's about 8 items per year.
Okay,
Where under is
a lot.
a lot, and it's just taking a lot of time and money and.
Streamlining here.
This is a customer service thing in a way, that they're going to get approved anyway. We don't deny them on the conditional
Right.
use. So let's just make them permitted so that they can just get it
Right.
right away and not have
Love
to.
these love these ordinances, where we
Yes.
make it simple and easier for residents.
It's
So-
every planning and zoning conference that I go to, they're telling us to stay away from conditional uses as much as possible.
Yes.
Yep.
There are some cases that we still have to have them. I mean, it's not like I have a, this is a bad example. But it's not that I want to eliminate all conditional uses, but I think as much as we can.
Yes.
And yeah, that's part of the effort, that it was a recommendation from city council to remove as many conditional uses as possible as well. I remember that.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
I just have one more thing.
Yes, Councilman Anderson.
I understand the ease, and I understand that this is a standard. I don't like conditional uses, but I also want to make sure that the dimension is right and that we don't have a neighbor who is building something that is too big for the other neighbor.
The-
So is a 10% structure going to cause angst, or 11% to 15%? Is that the ones that cause neighbor angst, or is it the ones that are larger than that?
Can I ask a different question? When it is between 10 and 15%, is the conditional use a public hearing
It is,
and the neighbors are notified?
yes.
And have we ever had anybody come and complain about
Yes.
that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that maybe
Yes,
answers your
but
question.
regardless of the
That does, thank you for interpreting.
So my understanding is people haven't been denied, but there have been some neighbors that are a little displeased at what's going in.
Some of them as a result of height.
Yeah,
Most of 'em
those
would be
are the
height.
items that we continue. Those are the items. Right now, we're only talking about area, no height.
So, and what is the standard height?
I think
that you're
height is the
approving?
next one, right?
That's
Varies.
the item that was continued, but
Okay.
right now, they can go up to 18 feet height as a permitted use, and then up to 25 as a conditional use.
That's one floor,
That's one, a standard floor is 12 feet.
plus roof.
There's a few in this neighborhood that are existing there. You have to drive through there, but, pretty well they're tucked away, they're in the back. Trees have grown up around them. And you really say, wow, I didn't know they had such a big garage back in the back there.
Right.
Right.
But anyway,
And you gotta give leeway to the landowner.
anything else for Daniel?
Unless he
Thanks.
blocks your view.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
Any other discussion, council?
So we're not talking height.
Nope, nope,
Okay. Then
just
I'm
the
okay.
footprint.
All right.
So we'll now entertain a motion and for ordinance 2020-12.
Mayor, I make a motion for adoption of ordinance 2020-12, amending City Code Section 10-9B-7-F3, single-family residential size considerations for accessory buildings, eliminating the conditional use requirements and modifying the qualifying provisions for the for the area of accessory structures in all the R1 single-family residential zones and providing an effective date.
We have a motion by Councilmember Jensen. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Williams. Be roll call vote. We'll go the other direction this time. Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock.
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen.
Yes.
Councilmember Limone.
Yes.
And Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously.
Did
now-
did we have a public hearing?
Yeah, because Denise came up
Oh.
about the chicken coop.
Okay.
She's just a regular. I thought she was just part of us.
So
Okay, thank you.
we'll now pass over public hearing F because it's been continued indefinitely, and move to our last public hearing this evening, 9G, public hearing to consider for adoption ordinance 2020-14, amending City Code Section 10-15-38, fencing standards, modifying the requirements for installation of fences over 6 feet tall and providing for an effective date. Director.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is another item that is a conditional use that Planning Commission consider unnecessary, as well as the staff. And by the way, I forgot to mention that the Planning Commission for a unanimous recommendation of approval for the last item, as well as for this one. I'm gonna say that anyway. So, just to give you guys a reference, I'm 5'11", almost 6 foot tall. I like to say I'm 6 foot tall. I was gonna say when I wear heels, but I don't wear heels, so I'm just 6 foot tall. That's the size of a normal fence, okay? That's the size of a normal fence. That's what we allow right now. Now, this is a great example of how a code is a living document, okay? Code changes from time to time. It does change. In 2011, the International Building Code got together, and then they decided that that if you had a fence that it was 6 foot, taller than 6 foot, 6 foot or 6 feet?
Either one.
Either way, okay. If you had a fence taller than 6 foot, before 2011, you needed a building permit. You needed to submit architectural drawings and see how that was gonna be structural sound. But after 2011, that changed that to 7 feet. Now, because of that, I would say 90% of the city codes in the state of Utah, they had fences up to 6 feet. Just keep it as a permitted use, and everything above that was conditional use. That was our case, because we were following the International Building Code. That was the threshold, that was the limit. International Building Code changed it, and now, for example, if someone wants to come here in Pleasant Grove and submit for a fence permit that is 6.5, we won't require them to get a building permit, but we will require them to do a conditional use permit, okay? Or if it's a fence that is 7 foot tall, we won't require them to submit for a building permit, but we will require them to wait about a month and come back to the Planning Commission to get a conditional use, okay? So now we're not talking about fence all around property. We're talking about the backyard fence and the side yard fence. If I'm gonna go back to this example right here, to this image, this is the fence that we're talking about. Right let me clear this. This fence right here, this fence is a side yard fence. The fence that goes from here to here is not side yard, that's a front yard, okay? So we're not,
Is that 4 feet?
yes. So we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about this fence right here. Sorry. Let me clear this, and I'm gonna go, right here. These fences that we have right here. That fence.
So it is the front fence.
Well,
Just not-
correct. We don't call this front fence. Front fence is whatever is gonna be on the front
Yeah,
setback,
right?
right?
Yeah, okay.
So, that type of fence, right now, again, is 6 feet, and everything higher than that, from 6 to 10, because we do allow fences to go up to 10 feet, they need to come and get a conditional use permit. Now, out of all the fence permits that I have, all of them, only one of them that came for a conditional use was about a 10 fence. And the reason why they want is because they said the deer can jump a fence and they want to go to 10, a little higher. They were protecting their garden. That was only one in 4 years. The rest of them that have come to planning commission, they're 8-foot fences, okay? So by doing this, we'll be also eliminated the conditional use part. Now, the planning commission think, and we work on this, that for going from 6 to 8, make it a permitted use. And if they want to go higher than 8, from 8 to 10, still bring it as a conditional use, because that's a huge wall, and we like to get the fire department input and that type of an input, a little bit more into it. Now, most of the times, the reason why we have a fence taller than 6 feet is because there's a grading difference, meaning that one property is taller than the other one, okay? And then they will like a little bit more privacy. And again, the fencing industry, their most common fence that they have for privacy is 8-foot fence, 8-foot tall fence, so 2 feet taller than me, okay? So again, this item is to eliminate the conditional part from 6 to 8 and keep the conditional from 8 to 10, but adding 2 more feet as a permitted use. So
Perfect.
that's what we have.
Yes.
Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Daniel?
No, I'm making this one. Oh, we have to have a.
Thank you, Daniel. We'll now open up our public hearing and ask anyone who come forward and address the council on moving fences from 6 to 8 feet. That's a permitted use.
Hallelujah.
Don't see anybody rushing the podium for this one. We'll now close our public hearing, bring it back up to the council for any further discussion. If no further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
Hallelujah. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2020-14, amending the city code section 10-15-38, fencing standards, modifying the requirements for the installation of fences over 6 feet tall and providing for an effective date.
I have a motion from Councilmember Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Bullock. And we'll start out with there'll be a roll call vote with Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock.
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen.
Yes.
Councilmember Limone.
Yes.
And Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. We'll now move on to our action items for this evening. 10A, to consider for adoption Resolution 2020-039, authorizing the mayor to sign a deer control agreement with Humphreys Archery LLC to allow harvesting of urban deer within the municipal boundaries and providing for an effective date. City Manager.
Okay, this is part 2 of what we've discussed earlier. This is our actual agreement with Humphreys. And Brian, are you here? Okay, so I've been talking with Brian. He represents Humphreys. This is the first time I've ever seen him. We've talked mostly on the phone and email. And so he's here to answer any questions as we go through this if you have some questions specific to Humphreys. What this agreement states is that the Humphreys will be the sole agent for the city to use, and they will be able to do this via the trapping with the bolt gun or archery tackle if they need to use that method. They're required to take care of the paperwork side of that, which the report needs to be filed with the Division of Wildlife Resources, which includes dates of harvest, tagging the carcasses, the protocols for removing and disposing of the carcasses, and then the procedures for returning antlers. That is the responsibility of Humphreys. The locations where we're going to put the bait or what we need to do to attract the deer in certain areas will be something that Humphreys will work with the city on determining where that's going to be. And let me correct something that I misstated earlier. The city does carry the liability on insurance on this. So it is our insurance. We name Humphreys as additional insured in regards to this program. So it is our insurance if something were to go wrong on the liability side. We also, we will agree to pay $2,500 per location, per box, the bait boxes. That will be, right now, we're going to start with 2 and see how that gets us there. We do have enough in the budget to do 3 if we so choose. And then, so we'll pay $2,500 per location for the year, and then also $75 per deer harvested. The agreement is a 1-year agreement with 2 automatic renewals, so 3 years in total. And then if for some reason that we want to, or they want to end the agreement, there's a 60 days notice that we need to give, which could be, the agreement can also expire if our COR, our certificate of registration, expires with DWR, or if DWR cancels that, then the agreement will be null. So that's the basics of Humphreys providing that service to the city. Are there any questions for me?
Council?
Are there any questions for Brian?
I do.
Okay,
I do too.
Brian, come on up.
Welcome.
Thank you. I love the flag, by the way. That's the coolest thing I've seen in any city council meeting I've been in the last
It's the
30.
yeah.
Thank you.
So, Brian, in your other, sorry, I'm down here.
Trying to find the microphone.
We're social distancing, man. In your other cities that
Short
you
guy over there.
yeah, contract with, what is your typical success rate? I mean, you have a lot of experience, right? Are you getting or harvesting close to 100?
So it's all based on the cities and kind of location and access that we get.
Yeah.
This started 14 years ago, and so I just happened to be sitting in a city council meeting in Highland because as a concerned resident of Highland, and Highland City had arranged an agreement with the division to come in and lethally remove them by aid of a .22 caliber rifle. And so as a resident, I was just concerned, and so I opened my mouth, and here I am 14 years later. So we've seen amazing success through several cities, and we've had other successes or other cities that we've struggled in. And a lot of that's given access due to size of lots, due to traffic of the way the deer move. A lot of, I'll say this, after 14 years of doing this, cities don't have the deer problem they think they have. It's just controlling what you do have. And it starts in controlling your people before you control the deer. So you're going to get 2 extremes. You're going to get the left wing and you get the right wing. You get the guy in here that wants it dead, and you get the other guy in here that wants them all to live. And the majority speaks because they trust you. They elected you, they put you into position, and they want you to. And I've been in public hearings in Provo City's high school, and where we had 500 people show up. And I figured we'd have a 50-50 split, and it was a 90-10. 90 for removal and 10 against. And so, you know, it's just been it's a roller coaster. But when it comes to success, it comes to the participation of the city that makes that success. What we do with, what we've started with and where we're at today are 2 different things. We started with 100% lethal. I personally did the lethal, but there was a lot on my accountability for my business, and so that was something I ran with a very short leash and a very limited control, because Humphreys was the face of whether it succeeded or it failed. And so over the years, we've had a 100% batting average, and I don't want to curse myself, but we've had a 100% success rate. We haven't lost any animals, and we feed 100% of what we harvest gets fed to people that need it. So the program that you already have a lethal program that's going on in your city, and it's lethal removal by car. It's probably the most inhumane way of killing an animal that you've ever seen. So watching one crawl off the side of the road with broken legs, or somebody dragging it off the side of the road and having to leave it because the state law says that you can't put it out of its misery, it's stupid. It's retarded. But doing it the way we do it it's not easy as well either. I have very high trained specialists that we put into this program. When I first started it, everybody The media wanted controversy, as you are very well aware of what's going on in our country today. So when Highland City approved the program, the media came in and showed hunters walking down the streets with orange vests and rifles slung over their shoulders and said Highland City was implementing a lethal deer program. So the city freaked out, lots of people were involved, including the Humane Society and everybody else. And when it all resignated and settled, it was a very controlled program with lots of thought and lots of, I'm probably one of the biggest animal lovers in the room. If it was up to me, I wouldn't kill any deer, okay? I love them. They could come and live in my yard and I would welcome them even after 14 years of doing this. But I also understand the frustration of landowners. I've been in every type of yard you can imagine, from the person that doesn't care about their yard and lets the apples fall and that attracts the deer, to the very person that plucks every single little teeny tiny weed out of every crevice of the yard. So I see both sides, and I completely understand both sides. But when it comes to mitigating deer, it's looking at something and knowing what we control and what we can't control. And inside of it, if you're looking to remove every deer inside of your city, I'm telling you right now, it's not possible. Okay, you have mountains that are right there. And we have control programs. We have places, we have parts in the program that protect those deer that are coming off that mountain we don't take. People are like, well, how do you know the difference? Well, I know their names. That's a joke, right? But I do know them. And that's the difference, is we run cameras, and we run multiple cameras inside of your city. Because the Smiths are going to tell you they have 15 deer in their backyard, and the Johnsons 2 miles down are going to tell you they have 15 deer, and then the Cooks over here on this side are going to tell you they have 15 deer. Well, those are the same 15 deer. You don't have, 45 deer. You have the 15 deer, okay? But what happens is they move, and they move through your city, and they move through your city at night, and they move through your city during the day. Some are bedding areas, some are feeding areas, and some are just simply wandering areas. And so establishing those positions is very critical, and knowing where those deer move to and where it's safe to take one and where it's not safe to take one. The reason why I asked your chief to leave the archery inside of the program, some cities have tried to go to the trapping only, and it pigeonholes my guys. It totally pigeonholes us to be successful for you. We've tried to design the program as comfortable as you possibly can for a city to invest in what they want to invest in and not waste time. We have cameras that run that are cell phone activated. Every one of my specialists are on a cell phone. The minute a camera's triggered, we know it. When a trap is up, when we have a live trap up, everybody's like, well, we're gonna catch kids. Well, kids are pretty smart. If they get in one of those, they can walk right out. It's not a mouse trap, okay? It's a slide gate on the back with nets around it. So the nice thing about the traps, we did the lethal trap and remove for 7 years, and we had a lot of success with it. What we failed in was we're not really good deer movers, and the fact that our state just can't provide the resources that we would really need to do what Africa does. And I've spent a lot of time in Africa learning how to move an animal, and I've been over there twice to learn it. And we just can't simply afford to do what they do. It's big business for them. And it costs a lot of money to move one animal. And our cities and residents aren't willing to pay what it would cost to move one animal to the mountains safely and educate it properly to make it survive. So our success rate of lethally removing an animal and putting it back into the wilderness was less than 10%. And so there was a huge expense that went inside of that, and it's hard on the animals, really hard on the animals. And so, it's more humane to put one out of its misery and feed somebody who needs it than it is to try to, I don't want to ever divide a line and say what's better and what's not. It's just watching them being moved and watching them beat themselves to death inside of a trailer, trying to get to the place and coming out with broken legs. And one deer that doesn't know another deer will literally kill the other deer in that same transportation. So it's hard. It's what you're trying to do the best, and it's not. So can we lethally remove deer and legally remove deer from your city and do it safely and effectively? Absolutely. Can I hit a specific number? I'm not guaranteeing nothing. What I can do is I allow you to have a budget. And you guys look at your budget, and what we do is once the harvest starts, I can tell your chief every month, here's where we're at, here's where we're at. It's $2,500 a location. When you say $2,500 a location, that's your camera, that's your bait, that's your trap, and that's my guy's resource. okay? Sometimes that's a tree stand, sometimes it's a ground blind. If it's a lethal enough area that you got a property owner that's got 5 acres, it's way, way more effective to put somebody in a stand and remove them quickly than it is to wait for one to get inside of a trap. They have to get pretty hungry to get in a trap, especially when the resources are already available. So, can we be effective? Absolutely. But it comes down to what your residents, because I'll tell you what, I will not sign off on agreement if this resident loves them and this resident hates them. This resident doesn't get to do it. It doesn't work that way. It's a mutual agreement, and it's inside of a, if we get inside of a cul-de-sac or, you know, a subdivision, and the one at the back is the one that hates him because his is the one they always lay in and feed in and whatever, and he's got the nice garden, he has to get the permission of all of his neighbors in order for us to come in. It's not my job. I'll come in and explain and do my part with anybody that wants to talk. It's not my job to make friends with your neighbor. So that's your job. You have to live with them, and I'm not gonna be the guy that's getting yelled at because I'm in your backyard. So we do have rules that I think kind of helps level the playing field with everybody. My greatest success is the fact that we get done every year and everybody goes, you did what, when, how? Exactly.
Will you have an idea of what our population is after the end of this first year, or?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
I told the chief, it's Scott, right?
And I'm not the police chief.
Oh, okay, well,
I
I
know
told
most of
Scott,
you don't.
sorry.
I am, yeah.
He acts like the chief.
Wait,
I have him in
this
my
is
phone as chief of
Chief
police.
Scott.
Wow, I didn't know that's what you made people call you, Scott. So,
I've heard king, too.
But anyway, as I was explaining, we have a protocol that we go through that allows us to come in and count your deer. I'm certified as a 333 pilot, which none of you guys are gonna even know what that means, but it's a drone pilot. And I did that so that I could aerial survey
Okay, cool.
animals. But in order for me to do that, it takes about 2 weeks worth of flying and monitoring deer and making sure I'm counting the same deer at the same time of day. So I charge $2,000 to do that. You don't have to do it. A matter of fact, I would not like to do it if you don't want to do it, because it's time consuming as heck. But you do have to provide the city with a number, and you have to provide the division with a number. And sometimes for me, that's frustrating, because the city will go, oh, we have 500 deer, because the division will highly encourage you to throw a high number out there. But your residents, you're gonna make a statement, you're gonna say, we have 500 deer in our city. And at the end of the year, you're gonna have certain residents come back and say, how many deer did they harvest?
Yeah.
And you're gonna say 50, and they go, oh, really, this is successful? See what I'm saying? So I hate it when there's a fake number thrown out there. I'm way willing to be held accountable to a number and held accountable to what I'm doing, but not when the carrot's so far away I can't reach it.
Right.
And so, yes, I will have a number. The reason why, and this is something that I want to clarify, because this is a question that you're going to get asked by a lot of people inside of your city, is how do they know that whether we're dealing with a city deer or a mountain deer? Okay? And that's easy. It's very easy. We monitor your animals coming in and out of your city with cameras. I know when your migration comes in. If you have a deer that's moving in this time of year, he's not a mountain deer, nor is she a mountain deer. Okay?
Right.
If they're here now, they're city deer.
Right.
So if you have residents that have problems and we're monitoring those deer now, they're resident deer. You know, they may be boundary hoppers, but if you're a boundary hopper and you're calling me to come and mitigate deer and you live in your backyard is that mountain, find a new friend. Because that deer has every right to use your backyard, personally. Now, if he's crossing 3 subdivisions or 4 subdivisions in and we're starting to hit main roads down into the city, yeah, we'll talk. But when the mountain deer come off, it's late in the year, and it's way past the time we're harvesting, unless you get 8 feet of snow up there. Because a mountain deer doesn't come off the mountain until he has to come off the mountain, or she has to come off the mountain. One little skiff of snow and they're not running down. So, and the nice thing that you guys have going for you right now is that extended archery hunt keeps those deer at bay. It'll push those deer higher on the mountain. So your boundary hoppers get harvested legally, and if not, the boundary ones will push higher. So the division has done you a favor by extending that archery hunt. It's gonna push a few of them in, Some of the boundary hoppers may run in because they know they're not getting hunted up there, but we'll take care of those ones as well. So, one thing that's key note you need to understand, we're not trophy hunters. So if you got a giant buck that's hanging out in somebody's yard, don't call us. I'm not gonna kill it, and I'll tell you that straight up. And I'll tell that to the division, because I'm not gonna cut a giant mule deer set of horns off to hand them to the division. Every sportsman in this state would love to harvest an animal like that. And the last thing that we wanna be known as is trophy hunters. We're here to mitigate your deer, and mitigation to me is females and fawns and young bucks. Once a deer is dropped inside of your city, it's a city deer. If it grows up on 1st East and 3rd North, it's not leaving 1st East and 3rd North as far as its residence. It'll wander through your city, but it's not going up into the mountains. Your deer population triples every 3 years. So what happens is the more and more cars that we get, it's great. Look at Mapleton. We harvested 300 and some odd deer out of Mapleton 3 years ago, and then they quit, because guess what? Everybody quit complaining. This is our 2nd year back out. I just talked to a resident yesterday, and she's like, Brian, I have 18 deer in my backyard. Well, this is a program you're looking at for longevity, not a quick fix. This is something that we're gonna look at, and that's why I tell cities, look, put a budget. If it's $5,000, it's $5,000. If it's $10,000, it's $10,000. But start off with at least two bait sites, and those bait sites aren't permanent. That's one thing you need to understand. Just because we pick the Smiths and we pick the Johnsons, doesn't mean those are stuck at the Smiths and the Johnsons. We will move those as soon as the Smiths and the Johnsons dry up, and we'll move them to other parts of the city. You're not paying for new locations every time we drop those. We may charge, depending how often that we have to move a stand, we may charge a couple $100 to do that, because it's time consuming. But as far as paying for a new location because it went from the Johnsons to the Fredericksons, we're not charging you $25. You're paying for that location. That allows me to hire the right people and the number of people to take care of each city. So if I know you have 2 stands, then I have people that can take care of those 2 stands. We're running 7 cities right now. It's not something that was just a weekend deal for us 14 years ago. So I ask you to set a budget so that you can stay inside of your budget. If we hit your budget by the removal of deer, then you as a council need to go back and say, okay, wait, we're at 150 deer. Do we want to keep going? Because that's what I'm going to ask Scott. Okay, we just hit your budget. Do you want to keep going, or are we pulling the stands? You still have a month and a half left. Your call. So then the council can reconvene. We're not going to pull your money from it. It used to be we were throwing up cards in the air and hoping that they landed. So we had to throw a budget and we say, okay, it's $7,000. But then at the end of the year, we only took 25 deer. It's not worth it. And I felt that wasn't fair. So we redid it the way we did it this year, or we've been doing it this year now for 3 years. So I just ask you to leave the archery inside of it, to not pigeonhole my guys, so that their time can be more valuable.
What is the percentage of archery versus trap and bolt?
It's 50-50. I mean, the trapping doesn't really catch on until late in the season, when things start to dry up and all the orchards have been picked over and the tulips are gone and the tomato plants and all the fun stuff like that. So, and I tell all the residents, when we start this year, we're really forecasting for next year. You know, the residents are like, they want us in June. Well, the program doesn't start till August 1st. So we can't do anything the year of. We're always harvesting and trying to take care and with those numbers down for next year.
Right.
So,
Okay, thank you.
anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll now consider for a motion for Resolution 2020-039.
I'd move to adopt Resolution 2020-039, authorizing the mayor to sign a deer control agreement with Humphreys Archery, LLC, to allow harvesting of urban deer within the municipal boundary and providing for an effective date.
I have a motion by Councilmember Bullock. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Anderson. This will be a roll call vote. We'll start out with Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock,
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen,
Yes.
Councilmember Limone,
Yes.
and Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes unanimously. And I will sign the agreement with Humphreys here. Okay, we'll now move on to our next action item this evening, 10B, to consider for adoption Resolution 2020-040, authorizing the mayor to sign an interlocal cooperative agreement between Utah County and Pleasant Grove City for the disbursement of the COVID relief fund monies, providing for an effective date. Turn time to our general counsel.
Mayor and council, this interlocal agreement is the method by which the county will be dispersing approximately $2.7 million to the city of Pleasant Grove to allow us to cover the costs that have been incurred or will be incurred between now and the 1st of November in relationship to the COVID-19 pandemic. The federal government enacted what's called the CARES Act and allocated money to the state of Utah, who then in turn allocated money to each of the counties. Utah County got $111 million to be dispersed. If you'll read through the interlocal agreement, they outline the manner in which they're going to manage that money. There's $45 million they're keeping for themselves, $45 million will be dispersed, and then I think it's $20 million is going to be kept for economic development purposes. Out of that $45 million that it will be dispersed among the cities, we're going to get about $2.7 million. The interlocal agreement outlines the restrictions on how we can spend the money. It also provides for a way, not in detail, but also provides that we expect that those funds, the manner in which we expend them will be audited at some point, and we'll be responsible to keep receipts and records with regard to how much money we spent, where we spent it, why we spent it, and there are some restrictions about how you can spend the money. It's a pretty simple interlocal agreement. It's something that I believe was started and negotiated by the Council of the Mayors in Utah County with county representatives. And then the city attorneys got involved and made a few tweaks. And
Well done.
Any other questions?
How much think we've accumulated, or accrued, maybe is a better word?
so far in expenses,
Yeah.
that would be a Denise question.
Any ideas, Denise?
Well, yeah, probably maybe 20,000. There's a few things we're working on right now. That is, the big one is our time.
Right.
So how much of our time can be reimbursed for those that spent time on coronavirus? And then there's also some rules from the federal government that says that your public safety, 100% of your public safety could be reimbursed. And we're seeking clarification on that between March 1st and December 31st. If that goes through, then we'll be able to use every penny of that.
And do
that money.
And the 2.7, do we would earn interest on that, correct?
If we earn any interest, if we put it on in an interest-bearing account, the agreement mandates that we spend the interest in the same fashion as we would the
Okay.
Yeah,
the
that's
main
per the
body
federal
of it.
government rules.
Sure.
So we can't keep the interest and use it for something else. We still have to
It
do
just would grow.
COVID with it.
Great.
And then also, in answer to your question, I believe we're looking at some additional expenditures with regards to more equipment. Some of the employees are sharing computers, and in order to keep them safer, we're proposing to get some additional computers so people don't have to cross-contaminate.
Great.
I have a list of like 12 different things that we're working on.
Great.
We just have to legitimize the funds, make sure that they are, I'd like to get approval from the auditors before we spend it. If we spend this money and it comes back that we misused it, then we have to take it out of our general fund. So we're, and the rules are changing every 3 weeks from the Treasury, and they are getting more and more loose. And so we're not really in a rush to spend this all right now. I think the longer we wait, the more that could benefit us in the long run for the use.
Thank you, Scott and Tina. Appreciate it.
Yeah, just for an update, Mayor Johnson is the chair of the county committee for the 20 million. They met last week. They just got started, but they have another big meeting this week. So hopefully I'll be getting some feedback on the direction they're going for that 20 million.
Mayor, we got an email from MAG today saying that they're gonna run that money through MAG,
Okay,
that 20 million.
Through
And
MAG.
they have 15 million is set aside for business and 5 million for nonprofit.
okay.
And so, but the specifics I think that you're referring to are still have not been hashed out. but-
Yeah.
But MAG is gonna be a part of that process.
That's good. Okay. So if, so we got our work to, force to see how we can find ways to utilize that
You bet.
money.
Be great. You ready
Or
for,
we give it back.
yeah, you ready for a motion, Mayor?
Yes, ready for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2020-040, authorizing the mayor to sign an interlocal cooperative agreement between Utah County and Pleasant Grove City for the disbursement of COVID relief fund monies and providing for an effective date.
I have a motion by Councilmember Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Jensen. This will be a roll call vote. We'll go the other direction this time. Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Councilmember Limone.
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen.
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock.
Yes.
And Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. And now we'll move on to our final action item for this evening. 10C, to consider for adoption Resolution 2020-041, adopting the revised Public Works Standard Specifications and Drawings Manual, amending requirements for pressurized irrigation and culinary water lateral connections to comply with the changes in the state requirements and to clarify what is required for new connections and providing for an effective date. And this is probably some good reading late at night or whatever.
This is not reading, this is
So,
visual.
Director.
This is a standard drawing update. So fairly simple, anybody can look at it fairly quick and shouldn't be a long item. As it's mentioning there, we do have some updates to our standard drawings for our pressure irrigation boxes to be able to accommodate better the meters that we've selected, and those were adopted in our last council meeting per the state standards of requiring meters now for any new service requested. We've updated essentially 4 drawings for that. As you know, or you may remember, we do have 4 sizes of our typical residential meters. We've got a 1-inch, 1.5-inch, and a 2-inch meter that is there. We have standard drawings kind of that have been modified to account for how we currently, the current things that we're using for our supplies, the materials and things of that nature, as well as the box accommodating a meter readout for AMI readout. So it's a radio read that you would see in the top of your meter can for culinary water, for example. You see the little black thing. These lids will now accommodate those types of things. And so we've made the necessary changes for that. The other thing that we've changed is just a very minor detail on our water detail, water meter detail. This is on a 1-inch water meter. There's a little valve here that we used to call out here that there was a ball valve required before the setter. And we've had a number of issues with developers forgetting to install that. And so now we want to show it on the drawing rather than calling it out under this note. We've just separated it, put a valve here, and called out the valve as a curb stop. Exciting stuff, but those are the changes on 2 of our 1-inch service details for the culinary water meters, and then 4 details on the secondary water meters. Can answer any questions you have about it.
So how big are the boxes have to be now for the meter, the ones that are putting meters in?
So I believe it depends on the size of meter. The 1-inch meter, I believe, is a 14 by 20 or 13 by 20. If you're talking about pressure irrigation, if I remember correctly, it's like a 13 by 20 meter box. That's that note right there. So that's how big it is. The meters are typically about 11 inches, but by the time you get all of the valves and we got a little a garden valve there that you put in there, kind of a hose bib, that's inside the box as well to be able to kind of run the water through and things like that. So pretty straightforward.
Any other questions for our director? Not, thank you, Marty. And I would ask for a motion for Resolution 2020-041.
I'll make that motion, Mayor, that we adopt Resolution 2020-041, adopting the revised Public Works Standard Specifications and Drawings Manual, amending requirements for pressurized irrigation and culinary water lateral connections to comply with the changes in state law requirements and to clarify what is required for new connections, and providing for an effective date.
We have a motion by Councilmember Anderson, and do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Bullock. This will be a roll call vote, and we'll start out with Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Bullock,
Yes.
Councilmember Jensen,
Yes.
Councilmember Limone,
Yes.
and Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Thank you, passes unanimously. We've finished all of our action items this evening, and we'll go back and finish our discussion items from our work session. And our rec director, you want to come forward and, Director Wilk, and give us a little rundown?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We are busy. We're thinking through all of the programs with COVID, and so trying to figure out how to make everything happen. Right now, my son just won his tournament game out of the baseball field, so I was glad to get that report. But we're in baseball tournament right now, so it's going. It's hot. They're playing a little later than they're used to, so they're pretty warm out there. But we're doing the baseball tournament. We just finished soccer registration. We'll start that in August. We're running basketball camp, volleyball camp, soccer camp, and our new enrichment coordinator, Amber Woofenden, is getting all the programs ready. We visited a couple of other rec centers to kind of see what they do in that program, so she can get up to speed on what other rec centers are offering and just kind of see what their best things that they offer and bring them back to Pleasant Grove. So. Other than that, the pool is kind of with the weather.
Packed.
Yeah, it's when it's hot, it's packed, and when it goes down to 60 degrees, we not so packed.
It was snowing.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy following the weather, but it's being used, and the people really enjoy those new slides. I get a lot of good reports on those slides. Even Councilman Limone gave me a good report on this slide.
I went down.
What's that?
And I went down and I didn't there was no seams.
Yeah.
It did not hurt your back.
Wow.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you being here. You could have sent us an email and gone to your boys' game.
It's all good. He's got another one now tomorrow, so I'm excited. That's
All
why
right.
I was excited to get the report.
Those are important, Tyler.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, they
You're
are.
good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sherry, would you come forward and tell us about the good things at the library?
My reports are pretty brief these days. We are open but not very busy. People are, I think people are still just cautious. I don't know. We are doing things still to involve the community. And we just started a reader's advisory that's online, so people can fill out a form and say, I'm interested in blah, blah, blah. And then within a day or two, a librarian will get back with suggestions of 5 or so books
I love that.
that they might enjoy. And then they can place them on hold or reply and say, please place those on hold for me, and come pick them up or come to curbside checkout and get them. So, and we'll probably continue that after we're back to normal, because it's a nice service. Yeah. And Concerts in the Park is doing great. And moved permanently to, barring bad weather, moved permanently to Downtown Park.
it was a big event on Sunday. There was a lot of people there. They did great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Director Giles.
I really don't have a lot. It's hot, very hot. Trying to keep everybody hydrated. We were able to hire our full-time position opening, so he started on July 1st. Sawyer Peacock, so we'll bring him into council. Has this area. He's doing an awesome job, so staying on top of things, so. That's about all I have. We're busy.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dion. Doing a
Actually-
great job.
Yep.
I had a question though on, whose wedding was over here in the Rose Garden, over here in the,
Wow. Dressed
I
that
thought
up
maybe
so beautiful.
Diana was getting married again or whatever.
I honestly
something.
don't know. It was a local resident. Loved the area. She contacted us early this spring and wanted to have it there, and it kind of worked out okay because that was our work project last week and cleaned that place up, and it was a disaster. That couldn't have happened at a worse time when our help left and kind of left us high and dry there, but we got a lot of it cleaned up. She was very complimentary, other than we trimmed her roses, and she had to go out and buy roses to put in the roses, so it looked good, but anyway.
Damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Well, the trees in the middle of the roses didn't look too good, so when that was, it looks really good though now, so.
The ginkgo?
No, the ginkgo's still there.
Okay.
Looks really good. Thank you. Discovery Park, we're looking good too, so that's, and everything else around. Thank you. You guys for your hard work. Let's see, Denise, do you have anything else for us? Okay. Kathy, do you have anything for us this evening? Kyler? Were we on YouTube then tonight?
We were.
Still are?
I leave for one meeting, Scott.
You have one job to do.
We did get a final report back from our URS audit that we're in full compliance with their regulations, and we are starting an audit with workers' comp. So
Wow.
Denise is probably getting ready for more audits. So this is our audit season right now.
Okay. Christine?
Just COVID, working on COVID policies for the city and helping engineering stay abreast of their many issues. Other than that, we're doing good. Our staff is enjoying their new offices in the remodeled part of the old city hall. And they're very appreciative, especially the legal assistant, of having her own office rather than a cubicle in the hallway. So
Yes.
that's really good. So everyone's happy.
Good. Scott, have you got anything else for us? And then also discuss about our next meeting in 2 weeks?
Yeah, just real quickly, in 2 weeks, we do need to make amendment to our hunting ordinance to allow for the deer mitigation, so we'll do that on the 21st, just so you're aware. We do have Tamara Oborn coming in our work session to talk about the care, or the CTC, the communities that care, that she's running now, which we've hired. And part of it is she has to create a board that's going to govern her and give her direction. So she's going to report what she's doing and then probably seek your input on some potential board members for that. We also have Stephen Hopkins going to be coming at our next work session. He's the developer with ICO on the property next to Water Gardens, just to the east of Water Gardens. Well, they have some requests. So we have a development agreement with them that requires a certain amount of retail and things to be done. They want to have a discussion about some potential changes. So we've met with them as staff to kind of set some expectations of what we think could or could not work in that area. But he'll be here, and then we'll talk through that with you to see what your feelings are in regards to the development of that area. So that's what we have for 2 weeks for now. I'm sure we'll have a couple other items when we get there. Just reminders, our city council meeting schedule is back to normal. So first and third Tuesdays for July, August, probably September, October. Our next change will likely be in November when we have the first Tuesday is usually the general election, and so we'll move our meeting. But for the foreseeable future, we will be on a regular meeting schedule. Also a reminder, July 29th, we'll do our mid-year retreat We'll probably do it in here. We are very cognizant of our space and the need to be able to spread out. Hopefully, we'll be able to hear one another. But we want to make sure that we have a venue that we can have everybody in the same room, but yet kind of keep everybody healthy in that sense. So I have a draft agenda that I'm working on. If you have items that you would like to have discussed or reviewed, I sent an email last week. A couple of you replied to that, so I put those items on the agenda. If there's anything else, let me know. The intent of that will be about 4 hours, from 8:30 in the morning to 12:30. We'll have a working lunch as we kind of wrap things up. And if we don't go 4 hours, that's fine too. But it's a good way for us to touch base with you, review what we talked about back in February when we had our annual retreat, allow us to report on some of those items, seek some input from you. We will spend a decent amount of time on budget and some potential for some capital money we feel that might be freed up, and what projects we would want to do with that money. So we'll have a list of the projects and recommendations from staff on that. 29th. I believe I sent out an appointment.
He did.
Okay.
Check-
So
check
hopefully
your
you've
email.
accepted the appointment and it's in your calendar.
Check your email, Todd.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Councilmember Jensen, do you have anything else for us this evening?
I do. So this is for the chamber on July 20th. You mark your calendars. Family food truck night at our downtown park with a concert. You can
Yes.
social distance all you want. We have the whole park available to you to spread out. Food trucks have their guidelines they have to adhere to, along with some guidelines we've sent.
6 feet apart.
Yeah, they have to be 6 feet apart with their trucks, so. It's gonna be a fun night. Shane Lee Band has agreed to come and play all night for us and set up shop and just go out. It's just kind of just a thing for our community, just to come and relax and enjoy with your families.
What time was that?
It starts from 5 to 9. Shane Lee will not start playing till 6 o'clock. So, and he'll probably go all the way till 9. He just loves to play, so.
So you'll put some reminders out there for us?
Yep,
Yeah, you'll have
Tomorrow.
something for us to share.
I'll send an email,
Okay.
so.
Don't send it in an email. Send
Oh.
it in a
Oh,
social media.
right.
For some of us,
I'll,
they've already
Mayor, I'll
got it.
send a text, email, and on social media. It's gonna be
Okay.
pumped out there.
For some of us, we've
Sorry,
got
get
it
that
already on
Yeah.
our calendar. Okay.
I have it on my wall.
Councilmember Williams.
No, I don't think I have anything. Well, actually, one thing, it was interesting. A couple of weeks ago, my wife and I, in a spirit of social distancing, we sat down and watched a movie, and we're watching this really quaint little town that they're in, that these kids are in, and we realized it was our downtown Pleasant Grove that it was filmed in, and so it was kind of fun to see. We've changed a little bit in the last 30 years, but
Todd, it wasn't Sandlot, was it?
it was not Sandlot.
just
No,
messed
no, it was a show called Address Unknown. So
Was it kind of a Christmas movie?
no,
No, because there's a Christmas movie.
kind of a
that
mystery,
also-
kind of a mystery movie. It was cute. It's good, clean, wholesome movie, but it was filmed
Okay.
Pleasant Grove, and
used to get permits,
Yeah.
requests for filming in our downtown quite a bit. We haven't in the last couple of years, but we used to get them fairly frequently.
yeah, the story was set in the 50s, and so it was kind of good to see.
Councilmember Anderson.
I think we've got some new employees, so it might be time to.
I just made a note to put
Okay.
it on our agenda. Probably next work session.
Okay. And I have nothing else. Thanks, everybody, for what they're doing.
Councilmember Bullock.
I don't have anything.
Councilmember Limone. You know what, okay, but I will, hey, we're done before 8 o'clock here, but unless the mayor goes off on one here. No, I just like to, and I know that our fire chief's not here, but, you know, and John will attest to it back there. Back in the old days when the firemen did the fireworks, we're lucky we didn't kill all ourselves.
Yes.
And it was kind of a crappy show, okay? It was really slow.
It was
But
good.
it took a long time, but that show, and I know Sid commented on her about how great it was, and it really was. I think that's one of the best fireworks shows
Amazing.
we've had.
That
So
was
it was a
awesome.
great year to do it, and I just want to, everybody was involved in that. and
So Mayor, I'll give you this. We set up on the water tank
Yeah.
that night and watched the whole valley. And yeah, we did a spectacular, it was a good job. So it was big, so.
It was a good thing, so.
Yeah, thank you,
Went
Chief.
on
Is-
and on and
We-
on.
We've got good things going on in our community, and I thank all of you and our staff for the hard work and everybody goes to do. There's one other thing I want to touch on this evening is that I just had this idea on this deer. I think maybe we could build a 12-foot wall and get the deer to pay for it, and that would take care of some of the problems.
Get her done.
So with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. We have a motion by
Second.
Councilmember Jensen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Anderson. Any,
All those in
I'll just
favor.
ask any opposed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.